So Lisa, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm good. So tell me about yourself. Where are you from?
All right, first off, the way my brain is and my ADD is set up, I'm sorry if I jump around, I'm gonna try to stick to the point. So I was born in PG County, grew up in Adelphi, Maryland, and then Beltsville.
What was your childhood like? Both parents?
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely hated each other and were miserable, but they were good to us and did their best. Yeah, they got divorced when I was 12, but, you know, I was born in 83, so that generation, we were, you know, latchkey kids, and it was a lot different than it is now. Like, they were good. I mean, probably now they'd get CPS called on them, but like in the 80s, it was such a different world, and they were good. Any
brothers or sisters? Or?
I have one full brother. He is, God, I forget that I'm 38. He is 35 now. We weren't necessarily like super close, but he's cool. We were cool. I always sort of was like the main character in my head, and I think in the family, because I was just so like ridiculous, even as a child.
Did the divorce affect you when they got divorced when you were 12?
Yeah, I was happy as shit.
You were happy?
I was happy. I got like double the presents, double the. Okay, now that I was happy because of all those things that kids are happy about, but it did negatively affect me. Like, I started going to psychiatrists and stuff, and I think I was always probably mentally ill to some extent, like to the extent that an addict is mentally ill. But the divorce sort of, yeah, that's when I started, like, you know, mental health treatment. And
Did you gravitate towards one parent more than the other, or?
Yeah, I've always been a daddy's girl.
Have you?
Yeah, I mean, my mom is, I love her absolutely with every fiber of my being, but she's just batshit. And always was.
What about your brother? Who's he closer with?
My mom.
Mom.
Definitely Mama's way. She's still, so like when he needs to return something to, and again, he's 35. When he needs something returned, like, she will go to his house and pick up the return and return it for him. And yeah, she does still like go over there and do his laundry and bring him food. And
what was high school like for you?
Oh, I forgot that's a new tattoo. It wasn't. So what happened is I was enrolled in High Point High School, and it was, I think to this day, it's still called High Joint Gunpoint. So for the first year, 9th grade, me and my friend Angela, she had a blue Taurus. I don't remember. It was like the jankiest car ever. And we would just ride around and smoke swag weed. And I think I went my 9th grade year to 3, not days of school, but 3 homerooms, period. And so they like gracefully asked for me to drop out after 9th grade. And
what'd your parents say about that?
They tried to get, so they actually did enroll me in like a bad kids school, and I think I went to a day and then was too bad for the bad kids school. I don't remember exactly what I did, but I was pretty good at, if I didn't want to do something or be somewhere, like making myself so impossible.
What do you think all that came from? You think it came from hanging out, you know, just hanging out with the wrong people and bad influences?
I was the wrong people.
Were you?
I was the bad influence. I don't remember ever, like, thinking about it in the sense of, you know, like, I just liked always being fucked up. And
when did you start getting fucked up?
So 12, I think I started, you know, like everyone else, smoking weed and drinking. But I do, and drinking was never, until recently, drinking was not a problem for me because I didn't like it. But I do remember the first time that I drank alcohol. It was me and Angela, and we were behind the 7-Eleven in Beltsville, and we both drank a 40, and somehow, I mean, I absolutely blacked out and passed out, and my dad somehow found us, like, both passed out in back of the 7-Eleven, like, faces and puke, and I do remember, like, instead of that being, like, a bad thing, like, I associated that was
Like celebrated it.
that was fun.
Yeah.
I just was like, go hard with everything. Even if I didn't like it, for some reason, it was preferable to being sober and in my own skin.
When did it gravitate from alcohol towards drugs?
Well, like, it was always, I liked drugs. I didn't even really, and it's weird, the more I think about it, I never really liked weed that much. It always gave me anxiety, and I mean, I just wasn't one of those people that just loved it. Like, I did not fall in love with it. I liked feeling different. So it was like, as soon as I had a taste of that, I wanted
More.
to try I mean, mostly at, 12, 13, 14, all you have access to is marijuana. So that was like the beginning couple years, I think. But anything that came across my path, that any pills, any ecstasy was big, acid, dabbled in opium, like anything that I could obtain, I wanted to do. And I really liked those other substances a lot. Like, from the get-go, like, I liked coke, I liked, for some reason, I really liked Special K, and that is not a nice drug. That's a quite unpleasant drug, but I liked that a lot. Sought that out a lot.
When did it go from something you wanted to do to something you couldn't stop?
I didn't want to stop, I don't think. Not as a teenager. I went to my first rehab, I think it was 19. So I remember that because I had got pregnant for the first time with, like, my first, love of my life, and a relationship that I was just incessantly, like, drunk or high. And I was doing, by 19, I had switched from, like, dabbling to, and again, this was when heroin was heroin. This was
Before fentanyl.
This was before fentanyl, and had I been doing drugs when that came out, there's no way we'd be having this conversation right now, because,
Sure.
I mean, it's just everything is different. This was early 2000s, but so I had gotten pregnant, and I think everything in my, like, little deluded mind was like, oh, we're gonna get married and, have this beautiful baby, not taking into account I had been actively, I don't think I was shooting at this point, but I was definitely sniffing heroin every day, and if I didn't, I'd get sick. Definitely addicted.
What was a typical day for you around that time? Like, from the time you wake up, what did you do?
Well, so again, everything's, I feel like most of my life is
A blur?
Definitely a blur, but, like, almost, I remember pieces, and I can put together enough to, like,
Know what happened?
no, I know the main things, but so, like, during that time, I mean, he was way older, like 10 years older, well established, had, like, a beautiful apartment, and I mean, when I have to pat myself on the back, but parents gave me good genetics, and when I was 19, like, so I wasn't, like, sugar baby, like, but I don't know what he thought I was. I thought I was in love. And I would wake up in this empty apartment because he was at work, and do my little dope, and, paint my nails, and watch Jerry Springer, talk to my friends, because this was before Facebook. No, it existed, but it wasn't, social media was not, yeah.
Right.
So he obviously shut down my whole happy family idea, because just that was insane. And I think I was probably fun to be around as like a girlfriend, but you know, no one in their right mind would have wanted. How could I have had a baby? Anyways, I did not have a baby. I got an abortion, and like I like to say that didn't affect me, but I mean I was just high.
Yeah.
So, but it affected me enough that I was like, oh, well, this is quite unpleasant, and I feel like a pretty shit human. Up until then, I had never, you know, my substance use, I didn't feel like had hurt anyone, hadn't even hurt me. Like
when he left, did it become worse?
Well, so it's weird. So that was my first rehab. I remember I went to Avery Road. Gross. Terrible. And I think it was and it was the first time, you know, I'd gone through full dope sickness, no Suboxone, no nothing. I think they probably had stuff like that then, but that was not like how it is now where that's the go-to. It was, you know, you got like some Valiums or whatever, and I mean, it was miserable. And after I got out of that rehab, I did for like a month, maybe 2 months. I really was like, I think I went to a few meetings, had that little pink cloud, you know. But the more I think about it, when it came time to, okay, if this is going to be like long-term sobriety, I have to have a life and like go to school or make something of myself, not sit around and do whatever the fuck I want all the time.
Yeah.
I have to have responsibility, I have to be a grown-up. And I just was not, I don't know if I'm capable of that most days now, 20 years later, but I was certainly not capable of that at the time.
Right.
So I did that, like, touch of sobriety was real short.
And this was 19, 20 years old?
It was between 19 and 20. But I definitely, I resumed using, but it was not heroin right away. It was, and I think that's what fucked me up for a couple years after that, because it was, you know, smoking weed occasionally, doing coke occasionally, drinking occasionally, and I was able to use like most of my friends for about a year. You know, went to all the clubs in DC. During this, I was a Hooters waitress for, lasted about a month, which, again, I wasn't capable of functioning as a grown-up and working or keeping a job. I do remember around this, I was 21, because you had to be 21 to work at this club, and I had this great idea that me and my absolutely uncoordinated self was going to be a stripper. Because that's what I thought that'd be great. And like most of my ideas, that didn't go well because I had to get so drunk to be able to like do that I remember the first set or what, I don't freaking know what it's called.
Were you nervous?
No, I was in a blackout. Yeah. And apparently I fell. I mean, those shoes, nope. I will manage to trip walking in Converse. And I had those real big shoes, and I fell off of the stage onto someone's table and knocked out an old man. I'm not sure how I got home, but anyways, that was
the end of that?
Yeah, that was the extent of my working for like my early 20s. And then...
You ever overdose?
So... What I remember from my dope years, that's what I wanted. Like that, back then when heroin was heroin, like those good nods that I was after, today someone would have Narcan the fuck out of me and I would have been pissed. Because like I liked that. My whole thing with drugs is I think I was shooting coke at this time too, because it was speedballs. I wanted the stuff that we found out, you know, someone had overdosed on, that's the shit that I wanted.
Right.
And I think, I don't know if, I mean, I obviously am not invincible, but I think I thought I was. And no, I never, I don't know, I mean, in one of those nods did I probably turn blue, and I'm not sure. I did most of my drugs alone.
What were your parents doing through all this? Like, what kind of toll did that take on them?
Oh my God. I was, it sounds cliche, the tornado. I tore those people up and ripped their heart out. And the whole time, it was never, there's not a bone in my body that wants to hurt anyone. Around that time, I did realize that I was like super legitimately self-destructive though, because, you know, my self-esteem got really bad. And that's around the time where using meant everything to me. Everything. And I didn't care if I died, and that, you know, held out for a while. When I was 23, I had my oldest daughter, and so me and her dad, I was living in York, Pennsylvania in a recovery house, because at 22 I really did want to really get sober again, and I was for a little bit, and I mean, I was doing really good. I had moved out of the recovery house, but York was like a recovery area, so tons of recovery houses. And so her dad was a recovering crack dealer. He wasn't even a user, I don't think. I think he just did the whole recovery thing to get out of a jail. I don't remember. Again, I'm not, it was a lot of years ago. And,
sure.
Yeah, but I had moved out of my recovery house. I had a pretty decent job, and I was renting a little trailer or something. I had my own place for the first time. And, you know, we played house, and of course I got pregnant in a month, and
sure.
decided I was in love, and he did too. So I was not at least the only crazy one in this destructive thing. But, you know, by the time I was 5 months pregnant, we were both smoking crack, and he was selling crack, and that feeling of feeling her kick and taking a hit.
Is that tough to accept?
I've accepted it. I mean, the whole deal with that is, that makes me a bad person. I cared more about me getting high than I did about this innocent child's life growing inside me. And I loved her.
Yeah.
And I mean, when she was born, I wanted to do the right thing. At 23, some 23-year-olds are very mature, and I was not. So I moved. We, of course, were just a toxic, messy disaster, and tons of protective orders, and he would not leave me alone, but I was insane. So, yeah. I mean, we were both a mess. He went to jail for violating protective order, and that's when he got clean and straightened himself up, thank God. He ended up getting full custody of her when she was 5, and that was the very best thing for her. She's, you know, an amazing 15-year-old, and yeah. Just, I owe that, as wonderful she is to him and his sobriety and his growing up and doing the right thing.
What's your relationship with him like now? Good?
Yeah, I mean, we're not like besties, but
cordial. Very
cordial. I am like his biggest fan. He is amazing. He is the best father. And I wish, it sounds kind of selfish, I wish having had her would have done for me what it did for him. And it's not that I didn't love her, I just loved the drugs more.
Yeah.
That sucks to say, that hurts. I know how that sounds, and I wish that wasn't the truth. But one thing I've learned throughout my ridiculous life is, you know, saying what you think people want to hear not only doesn't help you, but it certainly doesn't help anybody else. You know, the truth is what it is. My life has been what it's been. And being truthful about it, you know, I just hope someone can, because I don't think I'm a bad person. I did some really fucked up and shitty and bad things.
Yeah.
And most people that know me wouldn't say I'm a bad person. And if someone thinks that about themselves, there's a context to everything, you know?
What was the darkest time you went through when you were, you know, actively using?
So during the custody, during our custody battle, because I had gotten into a car accident and I had gotten my little $5,000 or whatever. You know, you hire one of those, like...
J.G. Wentworth?
Basically.
Yeah.
Basically. I don't remember the name, but it was like someone I got out of the phone book. I'm dating myself, but literally I remember I found a lawyer in the phone book.
Yeah.
This was phone books. This was like, internet was still in the basement. The family had the one big computer. It might have not been like that by then, but it wasn't, nothing was like it is now.
Yeah.
I still had my little flip phone, the pink one, the pink Razor.
Yeah, yeah.
Thought I was big shit. Redirect me.
I was just asking you what your darkest time was.
So during that period of time that I was going through, so I paid the lawyer. Oh, no. The J.G. Wentworth lawyer got me the $5,000, which I then found the best custody lawyer. Gave him my $5,000. And he was a great lawyer and really wanted to help me, but I proceeded to... I was doing bath salts at this time. Research chemicals.
Whatever you get your hands on?
Whatever I could. No, I mean, it was cheap. I was ordering it, like, coming in the mail. But I really had lost my mind at that point. I think I was like 89 pounds of, like, I was like a mosquito.
Yeah.
Like, actually one just got in my eyeball, but I mean, I just, you know, was very, it was a very messy time. I was messy. It was, that was bad. And I showed out in court. And it was terrible because at the end of that, I lost my daughter, which was rightly so. That was the best for her, the best for everybody. And went into another rehab, and it was just kind of like that until 2014. And I had just had my third child, my second daughter. And it was the same thing. I just couldn't. I don't know, my dad says that, like, after I would get myself together, and then I pretty much had a kid like every 3 or 4 years. And there's something to say about this postpartum depression. It was definitely a thing. I would stay sober throughout my pregnancies, except for the first one. And then a month after I had each baby, I sort of went off the deep end. And for me, that looked like just getting real hard into whatever drug it was. And that was the pattern again. I think my second daughter was a couple months old, and I left her dad. Again, you know, I have this really great way of picking the most toxic people for me. Not that they're bad. Their fathers are not bad people.
Yeah.
They're not. I am not man-hating. But, you know, water meets its equal level. How I just found toxic people, and I was toxic myself. And I had left him, and I moved in here, and was on my own again without adult supervision, and just went wild. So CPS became involved, which is another, with each of my children. that's been a thing. And I was going to lose her or go to rehab. And I went to rehab, and I did. Hi, baby. I did, after that, try to stay sober. And I did stay sober for 4 years until I had my 4th child in 2018. And this is where drinking becomes a thing, because I had been completely sober for 4 years. Her father has not been involved in her life at all, and was not in my life before she was born. And when she was, I think one of my reservations after 4 years of sobriety was if anything happened to any of my kids, that I wouldn't be able to handle that, and I wasn't. So she was born. She's got a really, really rare genetic disorder. It's called trisomy 5. And she just is like the most perfect, sweetest, innocent thing. But unlike my other kids, she didn't have a dad that could step up and want it. So I think somewhere in my brain, like, using drugs wasn't an option. But I really convinced myself that I could drink. And that worked for like a year. Like, I worked in the sense of I was functional. And I stayed fairly functional until, Hi, Lola. Hi. You are at the park. Sorry.
No, you're good.
So I stayed fairly functional until COVID hit. I think it was March of 2021. March or April. And I had like, it's called fibrous, lumpy boobs, I guess is the non-technical term for it.
Yeah.
But I had noticed, this was like right before the mask mandate came, but this was, remember, you would go to any doctor's appointment, they would take your temperature, and like, you got to fill out that paper. That was right when this started.
Yeah.
So I remember I had a lump that was definitely changing, and I put it off.
When you say changing, you mean getting bigger?
It was getting bigger. It was painful. I had some changes in the skin, which those are really common. Hi, baby. Those are common signs of breast cancer in women. And again, internet's a thing, so I knew this. And I actually had made an appointment 2 months prior to get a mammogram, which I was drinking, and I just put it off. And in my head, I knew I didn't want to go, because I knew this was not going to be. I knew it was bad. Yeah. I mean, it was the size of a softball.
Oh, wow.
Basically, what happened is, so the type of cancer I was diagnosed with at the beginning of COVID, so it was like literally the worst time ever to have cancer. It was like this global pandemic, and
what was your first thought when you go there and they confirm it is cancer?
So what happened is, I'll never forget the radiologist. He's probably the kindest human being. Basically, so I went for the mammogram. I walked in there, like, still telling myself, like, they're gonna tell me, like, I'm worried for nothing. They're gonna tell me, like, it's a cyst or internal breast pimple, something, anything other. You know, I was 38 years old. I was a single mom to a disabled child. Like, it had to be anything but cancer. I was an active alcoholic. But no, so the radiologist, they had me do the mammogram, and she's not the radiologist, but the person who did the mammogram, I remember, so to do a mammogram, they take your boob and like smush it in it. And when she did it, because we were talking, I love to banter with people. I was getting her to laugh. And she did the squeeze to smush it in there and just got silent. And I knew then, like, because that's her job. she knows what she was feeling, and she got silent, and I was like, yep. My stomach fell down to my feet, and I was like, oh, this is not going to go the way.
Right.
So after the mammogram, you're still in that paper gown, and I'm sitting in the waiting room like, wow. I don't even remember what I was thinking. It was just, I remember thinking I need a drink badly. And they called me back to the little room.
That same day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they said the radiologist wants to talk to you. And I knew then. Right. I knew. But this man walked in, and Lola was with me. She was in her stroller, her little pink stroller, and she wasn't talking or walking yet. And he was probably my age. Just wedding ring, good. I'm sure he had young children, and he sat down in the metal chair right across from me and sat like this and grabbed both my hands. And before he said a word, like, I looked at this man in the eye, and he wasn't like boohoo crying, but he had like
tears
in his eyes, and then like it's ingrained in my mind that one tear rolled down. He said, "This is the worst part of my job," and it was like a movie. It was.
What's going through your head at that time? Like what are you thinking when he's telling you all this?
I wasn't thinking anything. What I remember being in my head was like, he was talking and I heard him. I heard what he was saying. I wasn't processing it because in my head it was like, you ever take that? I don't know I'm not going to put it to you like that. You take that big hit of crack and it's whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It was like white noise in my head. It was like whoosh, whoosh. And I was like going to pass out. I didn't cry.
What kind of cancer did it actually turn out to be?
So there's no good cancer, but
right.
this was invasive ductal carcinoma, stage 3C, stage 3, grade C, which grade C is the most aggressive, fastest growing. The cancer cells duplicate super fast.
It's probably going to move to stage 4 if nothing's done fairly quick.
Oh yeah,
it would have.
It would have.
Right.
They didn't know that well, it turned out that was my staging once I went through the rest of the process.
Gotcha.
But that day, he said, I was like, just tell me, like, what. He was like, this is gonna be cancer. Because at first, I'm still thinking, okay, you see something, but how do you know from the? And he pulled it up, and I am not a medical person by any means, but seeing that it was gnarly. It was like evil looking on the picture, on the x-ray. And I mean, it was all black and like, so then I had to walk out of there knowing, so it was invasive ductal carcinoma, meaning it starts in the milk duct, and invasive meaning it has spread to lymph nodes and other breast tissues. At that point, I didn't know if it had metastasized.
So when you get home that first night, like, all of this is foreign to you. You don't know anything about.
I, of course, did a deep dive on the internet, and back to the type of cancer. So the rarest kind of breast cancer is metaplastic. It's less than 1% of breast cancers are metaplastic. Metaplastic means, I'm gonna try to like layman describe it, like the cancer was in my breast, therefore breast cancer, but metaplastic, we all have cancer cells in our bodies, right? So the metaplastic ones, the reason it was so big before it became painfully obvious to me, because most people's cancers are found super small. Again, mine was the size of a softball. Metaplastic cancers can take over healthy cells. So like I said, that lump, although it wasn't as big, it was always there.
Right.
And then because it was metaplastic cancer, it took over that fibrous tissue, sort of like, I imagine it like Pac-Man, like it ate it up and turned it into cancer. and I didn't go in for the mammogram until it had already turned that huge mass into cancer, and then what started growing.
Just basically killed the cells.
Killed the healthy cells.
Yeah.
It's like metaplastic means it hijacks healthy cells.
Gotcha.
And it's very rare, and it's very, very highly likely to reoccur. The survival rates for 3 years, meaning once you're diagnosed with any type of metaplastic cancer, not even stage 3, any.
Right.
It's 30% survival rate, meaning 30% of people survive for 3 years after the diagnosis. If you make it 5 years, the survival rate goes up to goes up to 40, and then 10 years it goes up to 60. So those numbers were like a death sentence.
Yeah.
Those are not great odds. I did not like those odds, and especially once it was staged and everything. So it was within the next 3 days I had got my port put in, and I started chemo, and my life changed so drastically. I had always, sounds so fucked up, and again, I've learned a lot of good positive things from this experience.
Sure.
I had always been, and again, I was drinking this, and I drank the day I got my port put in. Even though I was going to be under anesthesia, I drank every day, including chemo days. How I didn't absolutely just destroy my body to the point that I died during chemo, I don't know. The grace of God, because there's no way I should have. You're like not supposed to drink during chemo at all, and I mean I was drinking like a fifth a day.
Yeah.
Every day. But my looks had always been meant an inordinate amount to me. Were more important than my personality. That's who I was. My value, only since I was a little girl, my parents probably had a little bit to do with that, and society had a little bit to do with that, right? Like, if you're good looking, you get treated better. Like, it just was so important to me, and I had slid through life on being good looking, right? I mean, that's the truth. That sounds like shit. I know that, but that was the truth. And all of a sudden, I mean, I had, at this time, my hair was like down my back, and that was like everything.
Sure.
I almost chose not to get chemo knowing that I would die soon. I had less, if I hadn't done chemo immediately, I would be dead right now, without a doubt. Like, that was, and after like the second chemo, I went like this, and I mean, it was like a movie. It was just so surreal, the whole experience. I had a fistful of hair, and I don't remember thinking a lot, because I think I was just legitimately
numb.
The drinking helped me be numb, but I don't know that I would have lived through it otherwise, because my little brain could not process any of this. I had kind of thought I was invincible, right? Nothing, throughout my craziness all my life, I had never got arrested. I never got raped. Nothing bad happened to me. And then within these couple years, I, had a severely disabled child that I didn't know if she was going to live or not. Right. And then I wasn't going to live. And it was, so, but I lived.
So when you're going home at night, going through chemo and trying to sleep and everything, is that just like too much to handle to lay down? To lay down and actually go to sleep? Is there so much on your mind that like you can't even function? Or like, what are you thinking?
I didn't function. I mean, I function again. So this was, you got to have the whole context of this was COVID.
Yeah.
So other than like my chemo appointments, we were on lockdown. I mean, this was the beginning of COVID, throughout COVID. All of my treatments happened in COVID. Before I got all of my surgeries, it was, you had to get the test. Up until October when I had this last surgery, COVID was big.
Yeah.
It's just now that it's chilled out.
How many surgeries have you had?
So I had the radical mastectomy, which they took off, of course, the breast and part of my chest wall, so those muscles, 25 lymph nodes. Yeah, and I was just, they couldn't do immediate reconstruction because I don't remember, because I had to go through 28 treatments of radiation, so that's 6 weeks solid where you go every day. And I mean, chemo sucks because you're sick and you're puking and you're bald. Radiation was to where I almost tapped out. I mean, that pain, I wasn't even liking painkillers at this time. Drinking had become my sole focus. But I mean, there was the last 2 weeks of radiation. My skin's hurt. I think you saw it. I posted a picture of me and my drunk ass. I mean, my skin was black and necrotic. And I mean, it burnt. That's what they want. They have to burn it. But I mean, that was extra painful. And I was on like morphine, I think, for 2 weeks. And it wasn't even, I mean, one thing about painkillers that I've learned is when you're in pain, it's not going to get you high.
Right.
And I mean, this was just the physical and emotional pain of that whole experience. Like, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And there was a whole lot of that, why me? Why me? Why not me? Like, the truth is 1 out of 8 women are going to get diagnosed with breast cancer. I don't know why I don't remember it. When I was a kid, I don't remember cancer being this prevalent, but I mean, our detection methods are better, but it's going to happen to 1 out of every 8 women that I know. Why not me? And despite like my own just insanity, drunkenness, I mean, because throughout that whole experience, I got half my head tattooed. I mean, I did a lot of ridiculous things. I would sit out on my back porch smoking my Newports. I remember going to buy Newports, full chemo. The way people look at you, man. Give me 2 packs of Newports, 100s.
Yeah.
I had every right to look at me like that because I just didn't care. I wanted to be alive for Lola, and that was it. But I also, life was so miserable, I didn't really care if I woke up. It would have probably been a relief. I remember calling my dad right before I got sober in January of this year. It was probably the month before I got sober. I do remember this, and I was like in a solid blackout for like a month. Solidly. I mean, Drizzly was like new to, I placed the order. They don't even start delivering till 11. I'd be on there. One thing, I tried not to drive. But again, every time I drove, I was at some level of drunk. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, like, as long as I didn't drive if I couldn't walk. Insane.
That was about the measure you gauged it? That
was, well, so when I finally, before I got sober, I had my surgery in October, and that month I was green, like so sick. But I was still drinking, and I didn't know I was that sick. I just thought I was like tired. Maybe I had like a little infection. Maybe I should cut back on the drinking. But I wasn't going to. So
Did you feel better, like mentally and emotionally after you had the reconstruction? Was that a big help?
It felt worse. And I think the thing is, I kept telling myself, like, okay, after my hair grows back, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to feel back to normal. This nightmare is going to be over, right? So it was after my hair, then it was after the surgery. And the surgery was it went great. It looks great. I mean, there's nothing that they could have done, but I unrealistically thought it was going to change how I felt about myself. And of course, I still felt shitty about myself. Because, to have self-esteem, you have to do esteemable things. And that's always stuck with me, because I didn't have any self-esteem. I wasn't doing anything esteemable except staying alive. So I had drank myself to the point that I had severe internal bleeding. And when I got to the hospital, my BAC was 2.7, and I was walking and talking and thought I was just fine. And they ran the BAC twice because, there's grown men that are, comatose, or at the very least, most likely stumbling at a 2.7. That was normal day for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't even drunk. I really wasn't, but it was a 2.7. I mean, it was, yeah. And I wish I could say that the fact that I had to get 2 blood transfusions. I had severe internal bleeding. Like, I would have died if I had gone even a couple hours later to the hospital.
What do you feel like is missing from you having self-esteem and things like that? Where do you think your self-esteem issues come from? Right, yeah, back then with the cancer.
At that time, well, I magically wanted to, that's why the surgery was such a letdown, because I just wanted to feel better magically. I thought if things on the outside, if I got this and this changed, if I looked more like my old self, that I would magically feel better. And of course, that was never going to happen, because I felt bad because I wasn't living right.
Do you think that's internal and not external?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I wish I could say that almost killing myself with alcohol, that I got out of the hospital and wanted to get sober at that point, but I didn't. I didn't want to, so of course I didn't. But in January 24th of 2022, thank God, I just had enough. I still felt real shitty and poorly about myself. But I didn't want to keep going like that. And I was just ready. It was crazy, because going into rehab, I remember thinking, oh gosh, I thought everything was just going to hit me, right? Once I got sober, then I'd have to deal with everything. That's not how it worked.
It's a process.
I got sober and I realized, blackout or not, I must have dealt with things, because all I felt was relief. Literally, the detox wasn't pleasant, whatever. I was so relieved not to... Funny. I was just relieved. I did feel like my old self again at that point.
That's great.
And I was humbled. And it is a process. Actually, tomorrow. So that was January 24th. So whatever. Today's the...
3 months.
Today I have 3 months.
That's awesome.
I have 90 days. And actually, my dad came for lunch today, and he said, oh, you should put something on Facebook. And I remember saying, no, I'm proud, but I'll wait till, I have something more significant. But
that's a big accomplishment. You should be proud of yourself.
I am proud. I'm proud, and I'm so blessed, and I'm so lucky. And I told you when you first got here, I had an oncologist appointment last week, and it was kind of scary, Because once you're a cancer patient, I mean, the odds of this cancer coming back are super high. And I would be such a liar if I said I wasn't terrified. I am scared. But what I do know...
Is the oncologist appointment just like a random checkup, or is there a reason they're bringing you in?
No, you go in every 3 months,
oh, gotcha.
And they do CAT scans every 6 months.
Gotcha.
So they had seen something on the CAT scan, and, you know, it's worrisome. It's not good no matter what. Hopefully it's not cancer. That's, like, the best case scenario is it won't
Where
be
did they
cancer.
see it at?
So there's a 1 millimeter, I don't like the word tumor, but...
Mommy, come here.
Okay, baby. I'm going to come in just a second, okay? All right, I'm almost done, okay? There's a 1 millimeter nodule on my right adrenal gland. So lots of people have that. The worrisome thing is it wasn't there on my last CAT scan. So we're going to do an MRI, and if it's grown, like, whatever happens, I am like, it's hard to describe because, of course, my first thought wasn't even that I wanted to drink. I wanted to smoke a cigarette, which I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because my older kids were here. And so when I would drink, I would smoke my little Newports on the back porch, and my kids would, I remember just their sad eyes watching me through the glass slider door. And I knew that even though it wouldn't have been like a relapse, because I wasn't going to drink, I wanted to go smoke cigarettes. I wanted to smoke cigarettes. But knowing that my kids' sad eyes would have been looking out that door and seeing me smoke again, there's no way. No matter how much better it would have made me feel at the time, I never want to see their eyes like that again. I never want them to be sad over something I can control again. And the cancer stuff, the health stuff, I can't control any of that. But I do have control over what I put in my body, and how I handle, like, whatever's going to come at me. And
if you had 3 wishes, what would they be?
wow. We're all gonna die, and my definite first wish, I want to die sober. You know,
Yeah.
I do. I don't want $1 million. I don't want
Right.
a nice car. I mean, kind of, you know, I'm living out my wishes right now because, you know, me and the kids are going to go on vacation this summer. We haven't been on a vacation. I mean, because of COVID and because of drunk mom, I mean, we just haven't been on a vacation in so long. We're
That's
going
awesome.
on vacation.
Yeah.
I booked the room, you know. I'm getting tattoos I've always wanted. I can look at myself in the mirror and not hate what I see.
Yeah.
That was something I couldn't even have wished for a couple months ago. 3 months ago, I wanted to vomit seeing my reflection. I was just beyond disgusted with how I had wasted my life, and I had wasted it.
Yeah.
And now, every day, you know, I'm doing something productive, doing something fun, watching these beautiful kids grow. I am living. These are things that I would have wished for a couple months ago. So, other than, yes?
The bug is gonna hurt me.
The bug hurt you. The bug hurt me too. I got boo-boo. I got itchy. We're gonna go inside soon, okay?
Mom.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go get Leo.
So if you had one bit of advice for, you know, women of all ages, young,
Yeah.
you know, your age, kind of going through where you found yourself 2 years ago, what would it be?
Nothing anyone would have told me at that time would have changed. Everything had to play out the way it did. That's just it. No, that's just for me. Now, if I had had someone in my life to tell me, because all I had was that the internet, that little box is bad. All I had was, you know, horror stories and, you know, thinking I was going to die. If I had had someone to tell me, you know, hey, I've been through this and I'm like thriving. And you can not only beat cancer, you can beat this alcoholism, because honestly, I'm more proud about that. You know, people are like, think I'm crazy about, like, they think I'm a badass for beating cancer. Fuck no. That shit was the doctors. I just brought my body there and they
did their thing.
They did their thing. Thank God for, you know, medical. I am more proud about this little 90 days.
Yeah.
Than
That's an amazing
anything.
accomplishment. You should be proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I'm in a unique position where, of course, I want to, you know, advocate for cancer detection and, you know, people to live like great, fulfilling lives after cancer, through cancer. And, you know, that's important. But honestly, for me, if you're a real addict and a real alcoholic like I am, like the type that is so self-destructive and does not love themselves and can't imagine functioning without something to protect them from the world, some substance. Wow, the biggest, that it's recovery. Recovery from anything is beautiful, right? But the freedom that comes with recovery from active addiction is beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I didn't, I lost that clean time from those 4 years, but I had learned a lot of, I'd met a lot of beautiful people, and I had learned a lot of good life skills, and you don't lose all that, right? Yeah. So I thought it was going to be so much harder coming back into recovery, and it hasn't. It's been so much easier. And
it's like building blocks.
The fears that I had about being embarrassed or people not accepting me back, or the judgment, that was all in my head, because that wasn't real. Everyone was just so welcoming. And for anybody like struggling with that, like, keep doing what you think you want to do. Keep drinking. Everything, obviously, will only get worse. I have never, in my entire life, gone to a meeting and felt worse afterwards, ever. It doesn't happen.
Right.
So my only advice would be just, however you are, wherever you find yourself, whatever state of mind, whatever, get up. And, Zoom is great, but get up and go to a meeting and sit with other people that understand you and talk to them.
Yeah.
Because that is how this works.
Well, before we wrap it up, I just want to let you know I'm super proud of you on the addiction.
Thank you. I mean, you saw me at some really low points, and it is very humbling. And I'm
gonna keep you in my prayers for the oncologist appointment.
Thank you.
And
I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you sharing your story.